Hi, this is Shishir Khadka, and I am going to present to you my Lab 0, and this is for EEE 120 Lab for Lab Section 68773. So as we can see here, this is my digital design of the XOR gate or exclusive OR gate. And pretty much all an exclusive OR gate is that when dealing with two inputs, one input must be different from the other. So for example, if one input was 1 and one input was 0, that results into true or into 0. However, if two inputs are the same, then it would result into false or 0. So as we can see here, this circuit, if we were to run a simulation, dark green represents that it is the value of 0 or off, and the light green here represents on or 1. So if we have both inputs 0, this A input will go through this inverter and would result into 1 going into the AND gate. However, this B input would go straight to 0 until it reaches the AND gate. And when dealing with an AND gate, um, if one of them is false, then the whole output is false. And this is what we get here: 1 and 0 would equals 0 when dealing with an AND gate. However, we can also see that A goes down to a different AND gate, and that B also goes down, and it goes through an inverter for this one, resulting in 1. 0 and 1, once again, would result into 0. And if we see these two values in an OR gate, it takes the only way that an OR gate would result into false if both values are 0 or inputs are 0. So we can see here that 0, 0 would equal to 0. Therefore, that the output is not light green. If we have one of the outputs like this, we can see that the A input goes through an inverter and turns into 0. If we see here, B input also goes into 0 in the AND gate. 0 and 0 in the AND gate would result into 0. And this A input goes down to this different AND gate and is the value of 1. This B input goes as a value of 0, goes through the inverter, and now it turns into 1. 1 and 1 in an AND gate would equals 1. In an OR gate, in order for the output to be true or 1, at least one of the inputs have to be 1. And we can see here that 0 and 1 result into 1, in which the Y output would result in a light green. We can see here, vice versa, that A would go start up at 0, go through an inverter, result into 1 in this AND gate. B would already be inputted as 1, and you see two 1 values in this AND gate, which results into 1. As we can see here, A goes down, goes in as 0. B goes in as 1, goes through an inverter, and now it results into 0. 0 and 0 in an AND gate is basically false and false, which results into 0. And in this OR gate, 1 and 0 would result into 1, which the Y output is light green. However, if both inputs are 1, we can see here that 1 would go through an inverter, becomes 0 going into the AND gate. The B input goes into 1 as an AND gate, into the AND gate. And we can see here that 0 and 1 result into 0 when dealing with the AND gate. This A input 1 goes in as 1 for the AND gate, and the B input goes through an inverter and converts to 0. 1 and 0 in an AND gate result into 0. As we can see here, 0 and 0 through an OR gate equals 0, which is off. Therefore, the Y output is not on or light green. So this is basically the terminal in which I launched the wave. And basically, as we can see here, that this is what the waves look like. And from the beginning, we can see here that both inputs are off or 0, which the Y output would result into 0. Oops. If we were to go here, A equals 0, B equals 1. That means one of the inputs is on. And that means that results into the Y output resulting into 1 or on. And we can see here, the positions have been switched, but regardless, since one of them is a 1 and one of them is a 0, the result is a 1. And we can see here, if both of the values are the same, as we can see here, A equals 1 and B equals 1, the result will be equal to 0. And that's pretty much what an exclusive OR gate is the rule of thumb is that one of them have to be the different value of the other. So A has to equal to 1 and B has to equal to 0 in order for the Y output to be 1, or vice versa. Or else we see here that if the inputs are the same value, then the output is 0 or false. And so yeah, that is pretty much my lab for lab 0, and thank you for watching.